All right, so have you ever found yourself wondering what a mathematician's life is actually like beyond, just solving for X and all that?
Getting philosophical about the world of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like someone out there is ready to go all in. They've sent us a ton of info on what it takes to be a mathematics lecturer. We've got career guides, this really interesting platform called RoleCatcher, even some AI interview prep stuff.
Wow. That is a lot to unpack. Sounds like someone's ready for a serious deep dive into academia.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. What does a math lecturer actually do all day? I'm picturing dusty old libraries, stacks of papers, maybe a chalkboard cameo here and there.
Okay, so you're definitely not wrong about the chalkboards. But
Okay.
the reality is it's way more dynamic than that. Teaching is definitely part of it, for sure. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. Think research, publishing, collaborating. It's actually a pretty social job when you think about it.
See, this is what I love about these deep dives, busting those myths. So tell me more about the research aspect. What are these lecturers actually researching?
Honestly, it's incredibly diverse, which is what makes it so interesting, right? I mean, we're not just talking about solving complex equations in a vacuum here, although that's definitely part of it for some. But think applying fractal geometry to predict what's going to happen in the stock market, or developing algorithms for personalized medicine, or even like using math to understand how infectious diseases spread.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Fractals and the stock market. Now, that's definitely not what I was expecting. See, folks, this is why we deep dive. You
Exactly.
never know what you're going to find. So it's not even just about the math, really. It's about how you can apply it to pretty much anything.
That's exactly it. It's about sort of pushing the boundaries, challenging assumptions, and constantly looking for new ways to apply these mathematical principles.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the publishing side of things? Is that just mathematicians showing off their work to each other?
It's more about being part of a global conversation. When they publish in these academic journals, it lets them share their findings, discuss new ideas, and basically, it helps move the whole field forward. It's actually very collaborative, even if there's some competition too, of course.
Oh, I bet. Speaking of collaboration, the material we have mentions research assistants and teaching assistants. What do they do?
hmm
Is the math lecturer like the academic superhero with a team of sidekicks?
Uh-huh. That's a good way to put it. But yes, it's definitely a team effort. A research assistant might be helping with analyzing data or reviewing all the existing research on a topic, while a teaching assistant might be leading a smaller group session or even grading assignments. It definitely helps lighten the load for the lecturer and gives those aspiring mathematicians some great experience.
So we've got all this research and teaching and collaborating going on, but what's the actual day-to-day work environment like for a math lecturer? Are we talking like, I don't know, equations scribbled on whiteboards in these dimly lit offices, or is there more to it?
Well, let me tell you, those whiteboards definitely get a lot of use. But you might be surprised by how much variety there is. Classrooms and offices are part of it, of course.
Sure, makes sense.
But we're also seeing math lecturers spending more and more time in labs these days.
Labs. For math. Now you've got my attention. What kind of labs are we talking about? Like Bunsen burners and beakers alongside all the equations.
Uh, Not quite. Think more along the lines of computer labs.
Ah, okay, so high-tech stuff.
Exactly. They're equipped with really sophisticated software that they can use to model these complex mathematical concepts, run simulations, analyze data. It's definitely not just about scribbling away on a notepad anymore.
That's so cool. So one day they might be presenting some groundbreaking research at a conference in Paris. The next, they're leading a team in a high-tech lab, and it's back to the classroom to inspire the next generation of mathematicians.
You got it. Dynamic is definitely the word for this career. And don't forget about those conferences. As a math lecturer moves up in their career, those conferences can take them all over the world, to connect with other mathematicians and exchange ideas.
Oh, right. The guy did mention travel as a perk. Speaking of moving up in the academic world, I found that section on career stages really interesting. Starting as an entry-level lecturer and working up to senior lecturer, what are the, milestones along the way?
It's kind of like leveling up in a video game. Except instead of collecting coins, you're collecting publications and research grants.
Huh. I like that analogy.
But seriously, the focus definitely shifts as a lecturer progresses. At the entry level, it's a lot about, really honing those teaching skills, assisting with research, and just kind of learning the ropes.
Makes sense. You got to master the basics before you can become the master.
Exactly. And then as you move into those junior and senior lecturer roles, there's a bigger emphasis on doing your own independent research, maybe leading a research team, mentoring junior faculty, even shaping the curriculum for the whole department. You become less of a solo act and more of a conductor, so to speak, guiding and influencing others in your field.
I really like how they included those example profiles for each stage in the guide. It's one thing to read a job description, but it's way more helpful to actually hear from a math lecturer about their experiences, the challenges they've faced, those aha moments they've had.
For sure. Those real world examples make it much more relatable. You can see how different everyone's career path can be and how those individuals dealt with the challenges and celebrated the wins.
Speaking of challenges, let's talk about the skills you actually need to succeed in this field, because it can't just be about being a math genius, right? What are some of the maybe less obvious things you need to be good at to really excel as a math lecturer?
Oh, yeah, you're telling me. I tried to conquer calculus one summer, and let's just say those teaching assistants definitely earn their paychecks. So, what are some of those skills that you might not expect a math lecturer to need?
Well, think about it. You're not just dealing with numbers all the time, you're dealing with people too. You have to explain these complex concepts, create engaging lectures, mentor students, and, even present at those conferences we talked about.
Right.
And that takes some serious communication skills, both written and verbal.
It's like you're a teacher, a writer, and a public speaker all rolled into one, with a little bit of math genius thrown in there too, of course. Exactly. And don't forget about critical thinking and problem solving. Those are crucial not just for the research side of things, but also for figuring out how to best explain those really tricky concepts to students. Even something like active listening is really important.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Whether you're helping a student who's struggling or brainstorming with your colleagues, you have to be able to really listen and understand different perspectives.
That's so interesting how these skills that seem kind of general are actually so important in a specialized field like math.
Yeah.
And, that actually reminds me of that RoleCatcher platform you sent over. They have this whole section on skills analysis, and they even use AI to help you figure out what your strengths are and how to highlight those on your CV and in interviews.
It's really amazing how much technology is changing things when it comes to careers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like RoleCatcher really offers that personalized support you need to make those connections between your skills and what it actually takes to be a math lecturer.
Right. And they have AI-powered interview prep that's designed specifically for this kind of role. It's like having your own personal coach in your pocket, helping you nail those tough questions about your teaching approach or what you're interested in researching.
That's such a valuable tool, especially because the academic job market can be super competitive.
Yeah.
Anything that gives you a leg up is a good thing.
Speaking of competition, the guide definitely didn't sugarcoat the challenges of this career path. Job security seems like a bit of well, a double-edged sword, I guess. On one hand, there's stability, but on the other hand, it sounds like there's a lot of competition for those coveted tenure track positions.
Yeah, that's true. Academia, especially in a field like mathematics, it really attracts some of the brightest minds out there. So you're not just competing for jobs, you're competing to get published in those top journals, to secure funding for your research and to really establish yourself as an expert in your area.
It sounds like a constant uphill battle. And the guide even mentioned potential for burnout. That's something to think about for sure.
Absolutely. The workload can be really demanding, juggling teaching and research and all the administrative stuff that comes with the job. And often it means working long hours to meet deadlines. So it's really important to be passionate about mathematics, to have good time management skills, and to make sure you're taking care of yourself so you don't burn out.
So it sounds like continuous learning is super important, not just to stay on top of the latest research, but also to stay excited about what you're doing and avoid that burnout.
I totally agree. Whether it's going for a more advanced degree, going to workshops, or even just studying on your own, that commitment to lifelong learning is something you can't really get away from in this field.
And networking too, right?
Yeah.
Building relationships with other people in the mathematics community, whether it's for collaborating on research, finding a mentor, or even navigating that job market.
It all comes back to that idea of community and collaboration that we were talking about before. A successful career, especially in academia, is rarely something you achieve completely on your own.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of math lecturers, what's the one key takeaway for our listener who might be thinking about taking the plunge?
I'd say if you're passionate about mathematics, if you really enjoy a good challenge, and if you're driven by that desire to learn and discover new things, then yeah, this could be an amazing career path for you. but go into it with your eyes wide open. It's about so much more than just numbers. It's about communication, collaboration, and a real dedication to learning and growing as a mathematician.
Well said. It's been so fascinating exploring this multifaceted career path with you. One of the things that really struck me is how we tend to put math in this box. We think of it as rigid and kind of isolated, but in reality, it's connected to so many different fields.
For sure.
It's the language that underpins everything from music to linguistics to, believe it or not, the culinary arts.
That's right. Math is everywhere if you know where to look.
And that's something I think our listeners can really take away from this. What's one surprising place where a strong math background could be an asset? The beauty of mathematics is that it can bridge the gap between all these different disciplines and unlock totally new ways of thinking. So keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and most importantly, keep crunching those numbers.
I love it.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. And listeners, until next time, keep those curious minds engaged.